Hopefully you guys can't hear my walking pad too much. Let me know. I'll have to try something different, but wanted to get on here so I can get my steps in and I can answer your guys' questions. So if you have executive assistant related questions, drop them, add a comment. I don't know, I never go live, so just gonna try it out. Try something different. Hope everyone's having a great day. It is Friday Eve, so that's great. Yeah, hopefully this is not loud. I don't know. But I'm trying to get to 10,000 steps, and I feel like I'm more productive when I'm on my walking pad. So maybe that's what I have to do. Maybe I should just hide my face. I don't like looking at my face on my computer. But yeah, I hope everyone's having a great day. I want this over here. I don't know. No, that's way too bright. Hello. Okay, what was some stuff I was working on? I gotta close out on some tabs. Just like my brain, I have like so many tabs open at one time on my computer. So I gotta go through it. Close out of some things. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how this whole thing works. The first time ever going live on my computer. So we're trying it out. So apologies if you guys do post anything or you comment anything and I don't see it. Yeah, I'm just trying to get used to this whole thing. I'm a multitasker though, I like doing multiple things at once. If I can. Because if you're multitasking and it's things that you actually have to focus on, like you actually have to use brain power for, like I don't think you can watch something and get work done at the same time and like put your focus into both. But when it comes to like doing laundry or the dishes while I listen to a movie or watch a movie or something, yeah, I could do that. My personal favorite task I had to do was rehome a parrot. What's a ridiculous ask you've gotten? So one of my executives, I thought it was kind of weird. He would ask me his son was in like, I think it was lacrosse, and he gave me, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was the, like the schedule, or it was something to do with their schedule or like scrimmages. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he asked me to create that. And I thought it was a one-time thing. Well, then he just kept asking me and I'm like, cool, I'm just the assistant for your lacrosse team, I guess. So I don't know if I would say that's a favorite, but that was definitely one where I was like, well, this is interesting. Let me think if there's anything else. I mean, I don't know. I've had some high maintenance executives too. I'm trying to think if there's anyone. I'm so bad at thinking of things off the top of my head, but I've worked with a lot of assistants too, and some stories that they've told me, I'm like, whew, love hearing the tea, but happy I didn't have to go through it. So there's that. But rehoming a parrot, that's interesting. Gosh, if I think of a ridiculous task, if I think of another one, I'll say it. Because the one that I said wasn't super ridiculous, but again, I'm not great at thinking of things off the top of my head. I get kind of flustered, and I think that's why going live always makes me nervous. Because I'm like, if I'm asked something and like then I get flustered, or if my ADHD gets the best of me and I'm talking about a topic, because this happens to me all the time. I'm talking about a topic, right? And then I go off on a tangent. I think about something else that I need to add to the story, but then I forget what the original story was, what my original path was for what I was saying. So yeah, on live, you're going to be able to see that. Hello, executive assistant from Finland here. Ooh, hello. I love hearing where you guys are from. Honestly, I've had people email me from South Africa, like Finland, like all over. It's so cool. So cool, the community that has been created. I love it. I think that's why I love TikTok so much. But social media in general, it's a really good way to, know people or like meet people from all over the world. I love it. So this is kind of random. But I got a wild hair yesterday to do a what's in my bag. I'm just looking at it because I'm closing my tabs and I'm on my YouTube tab, and I uploaded it today, but it's what's in my bag, executive assistant edition, because I was watching a deep dive. I don't know if any of you like doing this, but one of my like guilty pleasures is watching those like deep dive videos on certain topics on YouTube, and this specific topic was just the crazy what's in my bag hauls, and how it's, you know, people do color coded stuff and they have like these huge, I don't know, cabinets, closets full of stuff just to stock their purse. And that is just not me at all. I have my one bag, and like I have a little, a basic purse I can just grab on the go. But when it comes to like if we're going to activities or if we're leaving the house for an extended period of time, I bring this certain bag. And I was like, as I was watching this video, because the point of the video I was watching was the person making the video, she was saying how the original what's in your bag videos, it was genuine. It was realistically what is in your bag type of thing. So like, you know what? My bag is full of stuff right now, and I don't know what's fully in there because I hadn't gone through it in a couple of weeks. So I went through it yesterday and decided to record it and uploaded it this morning to YouTube. So if you want to see the chaos of what's in my bag, you can check that out. But yeah, see, that's another random story I just went off of because I was looking at my YouTube. Sorry if I sound out of breath at all during this, but walking and talking, it's gonna happen. And I would turn this thing up even faster because I'm a fast walker, but I feel like it's gonna be too loud. So for this first one, we're gonna keep it quieter. What am I doing here even? What is this? 0.6 miles an hour, but usually I do, I don't know, I think like 1.2, is it 1.2 or 2? I don't know. I'm a fast walker, and when I'm just in the zone working, I can go pretty fast on here, but it can get kind of loud, I guess. I mean, not super loud, but I think you would hear that over me talking. So regardless, we're getting my steps in. Because I realized, like, since I left corporate and working from home, I've just noticed, I like my steps. I'm not getting as many steps, which is a little ridiculous. I understand. And I saw a video the other day where someone commented, like, if you work from home and you have a walking pad, there's no reason you can't hit 10,000 steps a day. And yeah, that was the kick in the ass that I needed to hop on my walking pad every time I'm working. Because if I'm at my computer, why not get my steps in? I don't know. I also find, though, that when I'm walking, I'm way more productive. When I sit, that is when I start doom scrolling. So when I doom scroll, then, I'm mad at myself because I wanted to focus on some things. And so I'm trying to find ways for me to really just be productive with the time that I have focused on getting work done, because it's chaos around here. There's always things going on, and right now my dog is not in here because he would usually be whining at me, so we lucked out on that. But yeah, if you guys have any executive assistant, admin related questions, drop them in the comments. I am going to be answering them. I don't know how long I'm going to stay on, but we're just going to see how it goes. If you have a hard time hearing me, if my walking pad is too loud, let me know. But if I could just continue doing this, I would come on live way more often. But yeah, it's hard for me to really find the right time to do it. What do I want to do here? Okay, I gotta look at my ClickUp because my brain has been crazy lately. Like, just so many things going on up here, so many things I want to do, so many things I need to do. So whenever I get to that point and I'm so overwhelmed that I'm like, I don't even know where to go from here. I don't even know what task to do. Some sort of crazy thing was happening on ClickUp. I don't know what that was. I'm on ClickUp 4.0. I don't know what that is, but I got a new era of ClickUp. Interesting. I'll have to check that out and let you guys know. Okay. Let's see. Did that. Need to do that. I feel like I should have music on. Maybe I could put music on. I don't know. Oh my gosh, I have to return Amazon items. That's gonna have to be next week. It's not gonna work this week. Anyone else not the greatest at returns? I'm starting to get better, but yeah, for a while I was not the greatest at returns, but I'm doing it now. I definitely getting better at it. So I have it on my to-do list that I need to return these Amazon returns so I don't forget. How do you deal with a toxic manager? That's a tough one. And it's very nuanced because obviously a lot of things can go into it. But when it comes to being a toxic manager or working with a toxic manager, I feel like the more you know about them, the better you're going to be able to kind of stay within what they consider like their parameters or their boundaries. So I always say do the executive preference sheet, have them fill that out. If you can, I mean, if is this a manager, like is this an executive or is it just like you're an assistant and it's like a senior executive assistant type of thing? That also makes a difference. So before I go too deep in it, if you can answer that. What's your favorite tool to keep up with your tasks? Do you have any tips for travel management? So my personal favorite tool to keep up with my tasks is ClickUp. I have a free admin template within ClickUp. If you go to my bio, click on my link, you can get it. And I specifically set it up for how I was using it in corporate. And I still use it to this day. I've just tailored it a little bit for me working from home and just all the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I've pivoted, I've kind of tailored it for what I'm doing. And that's what you can do is you get the template and then you can tailor it the way that you want. But you'll at least have something to go off of. But there's many other ones. I've used Asana. I feel like Asana and ClickUp, they're pretty similar. I feel like, okay, they're all similar, but you need to go on them. I feel like they all have free trials. I always recommend going on each of them, seeing how you like it, seeing how you like the interface and just the features. And that way you can kind of do a side-by-side comparison of what you like best, because ClickUp works for me, but not everyone's going to like it. So I just encourage everyone to try out different task management systems and figure out which one you like best. And if you wanted to get my template for ClickUp and take that and apply it to a different platform, see what I used and create your own on a different platform, you can do that too. Do you have any tips for travel management? So, I have a lot of tips for travel management. Can you give me a little more detail? Like, do you mean just planning it, staying organized, international? Like, let me know a little more about tips for travel management. One thing I will say is the executive preference sheet, get their travel preferences, right? You want to know what airlines, like what is their preferred airline and what are all of their loyalty numbers. Same with hotels, car services, any chauffeurs or like rental cars as well. Anything that they have used in the past, document it, get their loyalty numbers and their logins if needed. Use a travel checklist, whether it's international or domestic. Use a checklist so that you are not creating a checklist every time that you do a trip and then you're just having to think the same thing over and over. You're like, okay, what did we do for the last one? You're not starting from scratch. We're not doing that over here. We creating something one time and we're using it over and over again. So those are two things when it comes to travel management. I feel like there was one other thing I was gonna say. Oh, when it comes to travel management, I always say, look out on the calendar. I was always doing it 6 months out. I say 30 days minimum, but I got to a point where I was auditing the calendar every single week. So I was looking 6 months out, and by doing that, I would see different travel, different things that were coming up so I could prepare for it. Because if there's like an international trip, you might have to do, certain visas, and that can take time. That can take a couple of months. So that's why I always like being ahead of the game. And that right there, when you're looking out on the calendar, it's showing your executive that you're anticipating needs, you're thinking ahead, and yeah, it's just a good habit to get into. I'm out of breath walking and talking, so you guys get to see that. Let's see. Is it too late for you to send your executive your preference form? So I always say it's never too late. You can always have a meeting with your executive. So there's a couple of ways that you can go about it. You can send it to your executive and have them fill it out, or you can have a meeting with them and go over the questions that you're not sure about if you want them to go into detail about stuff. But I wouldn't say it's too late. If anything, this is you kind of starting fresh almost, and you're filling in the gaps that you're not sure about, because I always say the more you know about your executive, the better you can do your job. So having either them fill it out or have a meeting with them to go over the different sections. I mean, you don't have to do it all at once, but getting that information, it's only going to help you. I call it like the guardrails, the perimeters, the overall just the preferences that your executive wants you to stay within. So that's why I always say, go back to your executive, figure out what is their preference when it comes to this. And if you have been supporting an executive for an extended amount of time and you're like, okay, do I bring this up to them? Is it weird? I wouldn't say it's weird. What I would say is you can even have a meeting with them if you want to explain it further, or if you have a one-on-one meeting with them on a regular basis, you can just let them know that, I found something that I would love for you to fill out, and it's going to help me do my job better so I can better anticipate your needs and just stay within your preferences and make sure that what I'm working on is, what am I trying to say? That what you're working on as an assistant directly feeds to their goals and priorities, the things that they're working toward. My brain's just not working right now. So when you put it that way, when you say the reason that I want to know this information is so I can do my job better. It's so I can get more time back in your day. I can know exactly how you want to be communicated with, how you want the calendar managed, how you want travel managed. It's everything that you want. These are the guidelines for me to do my job. Yeah, even if you've been in your position almost a year, you can still do it. You can even, what I have done is go through it and answer what you know about your executive. And you can even just say that this is something that I think would really benefit. The more that I know about you, the better I can do my job. And honestly, a lot of times when they hear that, when they know that they can get an ROI from it, they're more willing to do it. Unless it's an executive that doesn't want to give up control and wants you to be a mind reader without actually giving you context and giving you information, which some executives can be like that. But if they want you to actually do your job, they will be open to answering these questions. And if they won't, that's something that we would have to work on, because obviously there's executives out there that they're just difficult to work with. But I think when you put it this way, when you are framing it in the way of, I'm doing this so I can help you better. I'm doing this so I can look out on the calendar and make sure that there's no conflicts, that we have everything flowing so that you're not running from back and forth places, whatever it is. That's just a random example. Let's see. How can I assist a very self-sufficient executive? Thanks for everything. You're so welcome. Thanks for being here. Okay, how can I assist a very self-sufficient executive? So when it comes to self-sufficient, what exactly does that mean? Are they doing all of their emails? Are they booking all of their calendar invites? Are they booking their own travel? Are they doing their expenses? That I definitely need some more context there. Because self-sufficient, to one person can be different to another person. So, but when you are, well, I'll try and give kind of a vague example. If your executive is very self-sufficient, you can just look for ways, okay, how can I get more time back in their day? How can I save more money? Those are the two things that I always go back to, because as an executive, those are kind of the big ROIs that we can produce, are time saved and money saved. And when you're getting time back in your executive's day, think about how much your executive is making on an annual basis. And then when you break that down hourly, it's a lot. So if you can even get your executive back an hour each day, or whatever it is, 5 hours over a week, that ends up being a lot of time that they can put back into strategic work. So thinking about those little things, how can I provide more value, but it's also, how can I save money? How can I earn more money, or get the business more money? If there's something that can you raise employee morale? Is employee morale low in the department? Thinking about different things like this. What's important to your executive? What are their goals and priorities? And see if you can find something that they're maybe not thinking about. It's kind of hard to go in more detail. Right, the preference form would come in handy to understand whether they are cost conscious or not. Exactly. The preference sheet, it definitely, and you can go in even deeper on this. You can ask even more probing questions when, because every executive assistant role is different, and, what's going to be more important to your executive, to a finance CEO or a finance VP, is going to be different from a VP of marketing. So the preference sheet helps you kind of narrow down what's important to your executive. And then the more that you know about them and the more you learn about them and how their role ties with everything else in the business, I've just found it's been easier for me to find ways to provide value when I know how everything works together, when I know how all the dots connect. Ricardo, you are so welcome. So happy you guys are all here. So he books his own travel, calendar, expenses, all of it. Well, okay, so what you could do, you can list out how much time is being spent on those things, right? And if he's an executive, he probably has strategy things that he needs to work on. This might be a control thing. So it might be something that you really have to build trust. I don't know what your guys' relationship is like, but you might have to build that trust of you're going to get things done. You're letting your executive know things before they even ask. That's one good way to earn that trust and to get more tasks from them. A lot of times they're so used to doing things and they're afraid that something is going to get done wrong. So by showing them that you can do things, you're thinking ahead without asking them, I feel like that's when I've found I've been given more work. What else was I going to say with that? Oh, this is where I forget what I'm talking about. But going back to, so you were going to figure out about how much time it takes for your executive to do all of these things. To book your own travel, I mean, yeah, he might be like, oh, it's just easy for me to do it. But the time that's spent looking through different flights, actually having to go through and book everything and then, figure out how everything flows together in his itinerary. One thing that you could do is maybe create an itinerary without him asking. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some other ways, but thinking off the top of my head, I'm working on it. Sometimes I yeah, I lose my track of thought. So here I am. Yeah, I would just be like, okay, this is how much time you're spending when I could take all of that over and you could spend all of these hours on actual strategic work. And again, I think I would go back to the building trust. You got to find ways to build trust with your executive. And I do go into this in Nail the Fundamentals of Being an Executive Assistant because I talk about, managing multiple executives, managing difficult executives, and yeah, so I can't go fully deep on it here because it's just, there's so many nuances to it. But yeah, you really got to think about, just what is important to your executive. How can you, in your day to day, show them that they can trust you? And I think a lot of times it's just you got to be thinking ahead, and you kind of got to humble brag too. You got to let your executive know what you're working on. That was one thing. I had an executive. I mean, a lot of times they have no idea what you're doing. So you do need to let them know that. And when you're doing those type of things, when you're listing out like, hey, I did this, I moved this conflict, see, it's so hard though, because he does all of that on his own. So it's got to be a trust thing. It's not a you thing. That's probably a trust thing with your executive, or just, needing to have control because they have a lack of trust. Like they don't want to give up control because something might go wrong and then they don't have control of it. So you just kind of have to show your executive that they can trust you. Not saying that they don't trust you, but when it comes to these specific tasks, especially if they are really set in their ways, it's hard for them to get out of that. So you just need to show them that they can trust you and that you're going to get the work done and that you're going to get it done the way that they want. So look at how they do things and maybe get a few steps ahead of your executive. Look out on the calendar and say, look out 6 months even and say, hey, I see a trip coming up. Or you can look at the past year and say, hey, I know that this certain event is coming up, in the next few months. Do you want me to look into calendar or different flights? Or you can go one step further and you can just send different flight options. And you can say, based on what you've done in the past, these are the flights I would recommend. Let me know if you want me to move forward with booking this for you. And that right there is showing him that, oh, okay, she's doing it the way that I want, and that way you're not like asking for trust. I feel like you can't ask for trust. That it needs to be built, and if you just do it one thing at a time, that trust will be built and they will offload more tasks to you. But it can be tough if the person doesn't want to, give up the control and all of that. So I just say work on trust. Work on how can you show that they can trust you, that you are going to get, the work done and done the way that they want you to. So sorry if I went off on a tangent there. I can tell my cheeks are getting red because of my walking and I'm not even going fast. Love all those ideas. Big Texas thanks. Yay, you're so welcome. I'm so happy I came on live. I was so nervous about it. I'm a freelance EA for 2 people and I struggle with the inconsistent hours. Are you on salary? So I'm actually not an executive assistant anymore. I don't work in corporate anymore. Had virtual assistant clients, so I've worked on both sides of it. And now I am solely just teaching how to be an executive assistant. This has been the goal for so long because I've always had just that entrepreneurial mindset. Like, when you have a gut feeling that you're meant to do something. Before I started this TikTok account, I had said to my husband, I'm like, if I could just teach how to be an executive assistant, that would be amazing. That would be ideal. And then I just decided to post on, or start posting on TikTok. And last year I made the very scary decision to go all in on this because, again, I was like, this is where my heart lies. Like, this is where I truly am so happy, is teaching about this and like knowing I'm helping you guys, knowing that just from the free stuff I put out there, I see the emails, the DMs, the comments, and yeah, I'm just super, super thankful to have everyone here. So, but, I can answer this question. So, I struggle with the inconsistent hours. So, can you, I don't know exactly what you're doing or do you specialize in a certain software, or do you have like a specific niche within being an executive assistant, or do you do more general tasks? And the reason that I ask is I have found when you specialize, you can get more clients because you are solving a very specific problem for them. And when you can focus on that specialization, you can typically charge more for it. So I would just think about that. And then if you're able to, like, instead of just thinking hourly based, I would think of how can I package something, or like how can I package my specialty. And when you're able to do that, when you're able to package something, you don't have to worry as much about the hours, if that makes sense. So you're getting a set amount, and because if you work on something, and I have found the more I work on something, the faster I get at it. Well, I don't want to be penalized for working faster, getting my work done faster. So that's when you know how long something takes you, that's when you can start creating packages around it. And then you don't have to worry about clocking your hours. You just worry about selling your packages, if that makes sense. New EA here, Aurora, welcome. It's so exciting. Oh, Michelle, thank you so much. I love hearing that. You've been an EA for 20 plus years. Like, this is why this community is so important, because we all learn from each other. Like, it's not even just me. I have people in my comments answering people's questions, and I freaking love seeing that, because that's what we're here for, is to build people up, to be, honestly, I'm trying to be the person that I wish I had, because I can't tell you how many times I had been sitting at my desk when I was newer, and I was like, I wish I had someone to ask something. And even when I Googled, there was really nothing on learning how to be an executive assistant or really anything. So I had to piece everything together and learn the hard way. So I'm so thankful social media brought all of us together. It's awesome. I'm working hard to get my CEO to relinquish control of his calendar. He's very independent. I understand this. One thing I will say is that his life and your job is going to be a lot easier if you can take full control of your executive's calendar. So one thing, you didn't really ask my advice, but I'm going to give you advice if there's anyone out there who's having the same issue. So I would have a meeting with your executive and specifically talking about calendar management and asking, how do you like your calendar managed? And honestly, what I would do is go in, look at all of the meetings from the past year, list all of them out. You can call it a meeting cadence if there isn't already one, but you list out the name of the meeting, how often it happens, who is included, and the purpose of the meeting. And you list all of those out. So then you have this meeting with your executive and you go over everything. You go over every meeting and you say, what is the priority level of this? And you just really talk about how they want their calendar managed. You can ask questions like, who are the people that if they want to get on your calendar, they are priority over everyone and we have to move other things. Like, the main thing here is figuring out what your executive's priorities are and then being able to manage their calendar and stay within those guidelines. That's why it's just important to have like that, the meeting talking about the annual meeting cadence to, just figure out, okay, what are the priority meetings? What meetings absolutely need to happen? And also finding out what are their goals and priorities, because the way that you manage the calendar It's gonna all depend on your executive's goals and priorities, because you're gonna have these random ass people reaching out to you trying to put a meeting on the calendar, and you have to look at it and say, okay, does this have anything to do with my executive's goals and priorities? Well, not that I know of. And then, you might do some email research. You might go in the inbox and say, is there anything related to this topic? Yes or no? And like, those are the type of things that it would determine that, okay, clearly I'm going to decline this for now. And I'm going to reach out to my executive and say, hey, what is this meeting? Do you know what this is? Or you don't even need to decline it. You can just ask your executive about it. But that's showing that you noticed that something was on the calendar that shouldn't actually be there. So this is another one where just building the trust with your executive, looking out on the calendar and seeing if there's different conflicts, and maybe asking how they would want you to approach that, how how they would want you to manage the different conflicts. Ultimately, it all goes back to your executive. Not a breath, guys. It's talking and walking. I feel like I'm pregnant. Like, I'm not. But I feel like the last trimester of my pregnancy, just talking, I was out of breath. That's how I feel right now. Okay, as an office admin, how can I break into EA? I feel like I do most of the tasks aside from travel. And that's the thing. An executive assistant does pretty much all the tasks that an administrative assistant would do. Well, okay, I shouldn't say they do all of them. So, being an executive assistant, all the tasks that you do as an administrative assistant, they're all stuff that you need when you're an executive assistant, if that makes sense. So it's more so you need to think more of the strategic when it comes to being an executive assistant, because nowadays executives, they're looking for strategy. They're looking for strategy and then not willing to pay for strategy. That's a whole nother story. I'm not even going to get into it. So if you want to break into the executive assistant career, my certification program, that really talks about all of the fundamentals of being an executive assistant. So if you do want to just make sure you have a solid foundation of knowledge and just know how to be an indispensable executive assistant, I recommend my certification, because you can also put it on your LinkedIn, you can put it on your resume. You get certified in my executive support and efficiency system. So I set it up like I wish someone would have walked me through how to be an executive assistant, because I learned it all the hard way on the job and it was not fun. But that is how you can also break into being an executive assistant, because executives, they also, funnily enough, they want an experienced executive assistant, but how do you get that experience? Like, they're looking for 5 years of experience. How do you get that? If that's what they're asking, So that's another thing that I set up for the certification, is it compresses 5 years of executive assistant experience in 7 weeks. You can do it quicker than that. You can take longer than that, but that's how I set it up. So yeah, that's one way that I recommend doing it. Watching, if you just want to do it on your own, watch YouTube videos, Google different things. Honestly, you can piece everything together if you want as well. But if you want a structured system and you want to get that experience way faster, then it's gonna take, piecing everything together, learning on the job. Then I would recommend the certification. But yeah, trying to think. Because you're already an office admin, you already have a lot of transferable skills. And that is one other thing I will say about being an executive assistant. Pretty much everyone has some sort of transferable skills that they can use as an executive assistant. Like, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're managing. Like, you're a project manager, you are a travel manager, you're a budget planner. Like, you do so many different things that can be related to the executive assistant position. Just a different mindset about it, honestly, and working with executives. I mean, you're just managing adults. And if you can manage kids, you're herding cats. Like, that's how it is with executives. You're herding cats. That's how I always say it. I'm still learning the travel aspect. Yep. One thing I would say to that, I said earlier, travel checklist, figure out what their travel preferences are so you can, when you are booking travel for them, you can make sure you get their preferred airline, their preferred hotel. You can use their loyalty points. You can, what else was I going to say with that? I forgot. Yes, we do learn from one another. EAs are so underrated. Yes, 100%. 100%. It always makes me laugh though when I would be at a corporate event, like I'd be supporting an event. There was one event in particular where all of the assistants, we were the support staff there. I mean, honestly, we kind of ran it behind the scenes, and it was all director level and above. And it's so interesting to see how there's some executives, well, most of them I feel like are pretty great, and they understand just what you can do, just how much you actually do as an executive assistant. And then you get the other people where they just look down on assistants, and it honestly, all I can do is laugh because they're naive. I mean, they have no idea, so all I can do is laugh. I need community. This is a whole new world. I come from ECE. This is the community. This is where if you just need a place to start, I have tons of free training. I'm going to try and be on live more because this is fun. I'm getting my steps in. I'm talking to you guys. I'm answering questions. I'm helping. I love it. Let's see. But honestly, because yeah, you have the training in early childhood education. Like, you're hurting little people all day. Like, right there, like you have a structure, you have to be organized, I guarantee you have so many transferable skills for being an executive assistant coming from early childcare. Yeah. Let's see. He says he has never given his EA control. And honestly, some people, some executives, they might do that. They might always want control. They might not want to ever give it up. So what I would maybe do is show him that you can be trusted with his calendar, and you can just give like little updates and just look into the future and just say you're trying to learn. The more that you know about him, the better you're going to be able to support him. So you're trying to learn about how he likes his calendar and see if you can do something different than his other assistants have done. Because maybe they were just told, I don't need you to manage it, and they just, moved on. But I have found if you own your executive's calendar, it overall can just make your life a whole lot easier. Because you just know what's going on, you see all the moving pieces, you're more connected. So you would just have to find a good process as well for how to communicate changes and see how he manages his calendar on a day-to-day basis. Is he changing it, all throughout the day? Is he just back to back to back to back all day? It's hard to know without actually seeing the calendar, like how he is. But yeah, you can only see busy? No, that's shocking. What? Why would he not want you to see his calendar? I'm intrigued now. Why would he not want you to see his calendar? I'm confused. That caught me a little off guard. I would think an executive would at least want their executive assistant to see their calendar, to know what's going on, so you can prepare, you can think ahead. Strange. Yeah, that's very interesting. Maybe do baby steps. Maybe just ask, you had to fight for the busy? I was gonna say, maybe ask if you can just see what's on the calendar. But you had to fight for busy? That's kind of shocking. I guess what I would say is show him what the pros of you being able to at least see his calendar. Like, you really got to do baby steps with this guy. I would just say, like, look, I'll be able to do X, Y, Z by being able to see your calendar. I can spot conflicts. I can see what's going on, so I can help prepare. I can help save time in your day. I can, spot gaps. Like if you're talking to other executive assistants, you see things going on behind the scenes and you can help prepare for it. But my gosh, if I don't know, weird. Why would he not want you to do that? It's so helpful for you to be able to even see the calendar. Like, I'm shocked that seeing busy time was a fight. That's interesting. Oh, no, I love that you dominated the chat. Love answering questions. Because the thing is, if you have these types of questions, other people probably do too. So I'm answering this, and there's probably someone out there that can benefit from it. Because I can't tell you how many times I have been watching a training, like for something in my business or whatever it is, and someone asks a question, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, what's the answer to that? How are you going to answer that? So, yeah, I don't feel bad about blowing up the chat. I love it. Okay, yep, I see it now. I don't think he wants me to see his tea times. And the reason I'm laughing is because I supported 2 executives that they were friends. One was the CEO, one was the senior VP of sales, and yeah, they went golfing a whole lot. But it's like, it is what it is. You're an executive, like that's typically how you're doing business. I don't know, it's not a big deal. It's not my business. It's my job to protect your calendar. Like, but obviously that's maybe an issue that he has. He doesn't want people knowing where he is. Which it's like that's the biggest part of your job is confidentiality and discretion. You're not going to tell people where he is. That's, as an executive assistant, discretion, confidentiality is so important. So if people not knowing when he has a tea time is important to him, well, you will stick to that boundary, that made me laugh because I was just thinking about how many tea times these executives had, and it was just funny. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, so it helps if you do have another executive because you're working with the COO. So the COO and you are working on him. You help with her calendar and she's trying to soften him. That's great that you have another executive on your side. So you have built the rapport with the COO, and then she has that, they have a working relationship, right? So if he hears from the COO that, oh, she's doing a great job, she's saving me time, she, whatever it is, she's gatekeeping the calendar so I don't have all these random things on my calendar, whatever it is, then he might be thinking like, oh, okay, maybe I can utilize that. So that's great that the COO is backing you. I'm trying to transition from being a property manager to an EA, and I hope it's not too different. Honestly, okay, I've never been a property manager, but if you manage projects, if you have any type of project management, that's pretty much what an executive assistant is. We're an executive level project manager. So if you are able to get a task, break it down into smaller tasks, not be afraid to reach out to people to figure out the answers to things. If you're resourceful, honestly, so many things can be taught. So many skills can be taught. But it sounds like you would have a lot of transferable skills for that. And like I have said, I feel like every person has transferable skills, or almost everyone. I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of people, a lot of professions have transferable skills to being an executive assistant. And really it's just finding those gaps or taking a course or certification that builds that foundational knowledge and actually teaches you how to be an executive assistant. So yeah, just kind of how you want to move forward with continuing your education, because it is something that you are going to have to advocate for. You have to be your own advocate. So, I mean, I'm an advocate for admin in general, but when it comes to you in your role, you have to be doing that on your behalf. I can't do that for you. So if you want to learn more, you have to decide how you're going to move forward with learning, what path you want to go down, what training you want to take, whether it's a a course, it's a PDF you want to take, it's a certification, it's an intensive one-on-one with someone. It's just, you need to decide, how am I going to build my skills here? What's the best way for me to move forward? Oh, okay. I love that it makes you laugh too. He's great in every other way. It's just the dang calendar. Yep. And it might just be the not wanting to give up control, or he's maybe doesn't want people judging him when it comes to tea times. But maybe if you bring that up, when it comes to your calendar, I have complete discretion and confidentiality. No one will know where you are, especially if, it's something personal or whatever it is. Like, that's no one's business where you are. That is only between you and me. That's what our relationship is built on, is trust and confidentiality and discretion. And yeah, I think when you make that a big deal, like, that's ultimately what executives want, is they want to know that they can trust you to get your job done, and that you can be confidential about what you see, because you're going to be seeing a whole lot of things. If you're in the inbox, if you're on, if you can see the calendar, there's a lot of confidential things that will pop up, and you always have to err on the side of everything's confidential. Anything you hear, anything you see, it's confidential. It's just better off if you act that way, because you don't want to be that person that accidentally leaks something that's immediately going to lose trust with your executive. So, do you have any recommendations for understanding my boss's needs? Yes. Executive preference template. It's exactly what it sounds like, but it's all the preferences of your executive. So calendar preferences, communication preferences, how they want the calendar managed, what their goals and priorities are, what they expect of you in that role, and how they want you to support them. And it also has all the information, like their full name, their passport information, their driver's license, emergency contacts, family information, all of that. And it's so that you can do your job better. Because I've had people ask, like, what if my executive is like, well, why do you need to know this information? And honestly, all you have to tell them is, this is how I'm going to be able to do my job better. Because people will reach out to you and ask for your executive's passport information. They'll ask for emergency contacts. They'll ask about dietary restrictions or what your executive wants for lunch. So if you have even something like that, like what they prefer, or if you can do things that they hate, things that they absolutely do not like to eat, so you can avoid that and you can get something else. But all of that information, that's how you're going to do your job better. So that's a way that you can phrase it to your executive is, this is going to help me stay within the boundaries and the guidelines of what you want me to do in this role and how I can support you in the best way. Okay, she tends to ask vague requests, then gets frustrated when it's not what she envisioned. Okay, I've dealt with this before. Super fun. So this is, again, the preference sheet. And if you can even do the meeting cadence as well, and that's going to be the annual meeting cadence, you list out every single meeting for the year, or like you can look at the prior year, or you can look at the year coming up, or the current year, I mean. But there's always meetings that are being added to the calendar, so I would look at the prior year just to make sure you don't miss anything. And you can just ask, you can have a meeting with your executive to go over calendar items, and so you know what meetings are important, what's not important, who are the important people. And going through all of this information with your executive, it's going to make those times where your executive asks you or gives you a vague request, you might be able to do it the way that she's envisioning it, if that makes sense, because you already know the goals and priorities that she has. You know all of her preferences. So if she does ask you a vague request, you can at least look back at her preferences and say, okay, with me moving forward this, this certain way, does this fall within her preferences? Does this fall within the goals that she is working toward? If that makes sense. And another thing that you can do when you get that feedback from her and she is frustrated that it wasn't done a certain way, say, okay, moving forward, I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. Can you let me know how exactly you want it done, just so I can make sure I can document it and I can do it the next time that this comes up. And then you got to make sure that you actually do document it. Oh, what is this? What is it doing? Oh, is it because I haven't been on my computer? What is happening? I don't know. I got like an inactivity alert that it was going to end my live in 5 minutes due to inactivity. It's like, hello, I'm here. Hi. Okay, where was I? What is this? Complete the verification to continue your current live. I don't know what this is. Okay. We're just going to keep going. If I get kicked off in 5 minutes, you know why. Okay, let me see if I can get through these. My boss sometimes doesn't like when I take control, but expects me to anticipate needs. Advice. One thing I would say is ask your executive, in what areas do you want me to take control? Do you want me to take control with your calendar when it comes to scheduling internal meetings? But if it's an external meeting, you want me to, get confirmation from you. Figure out where the areas are that they want to give you to control and what are the areas that they want you to ask them first. It's going to go back to their goals and priorities. I say that a lot. I feel like a broken wheel or a broken record just saying the same thing. But it really does. It goes back to your executive's goals and priorities. And yeah, how they want to give up control. What do they want you to have control of? And if there are certain things that they don't want you to, move forward on, they want you to ask first, well then you just have to lay that out. You just have to have a meeting with them and really ask them, like, break it down and say, I want to make sure I'm staying within the parameters that you want. So I have questions about XYZ. And if you go in and you really set up the meeting and you are driving the meeting versus handing it over to them and expecting them to drive that meeting, that might not go as well. But when you go in, you take control, you have an agenda for what you want to talk about, then that might be easier for your executive to give you those answers so that you can start anticipating needs. And then you can continue to have these, check-ins to make sure that you are staying within those lines, make sure that there's nothing else that they want you to take control of. And yeah. What was that called again? Oh, I don't know what I was talking about. Executive preference sheet. I said that a lot. If you do need it, I do have it in my template library. Also if you join Nail the Fundamentals, it's also included in there as well. I also do well with managing calendar, but tells me to ask day to day if he gets really booked. So maybe what you could do, however, doesn't like too many questions. Okay, so what you could maybe do is every single morning or at the end of each day. So if you do it at the end of the day, you can say, this is what is happening for tomorrow. Is there anything that you would like changed? Or you can send it first thing in the morning and then they can get back to you right away. If they do want you to do that day to day because he gets really booked. I have seen executives like that when it can just be a quick 10-minute meeting in the morning or at the end of the day, just to go over either that next day, if you're doing it in the afternoon, or that current day if you're doing it in the morning. And that way, if you're doing that every single day, it could be a call, it could be like a chat, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but when you're doing that every single day, then you're going to be able to avoid those questions. Because if you do have questions, you can quick ask them in those 10 minutes. And because you're meeting every day or you're talking every day, they really should only take 10 minutes. If you have questions, you can quickly ask, especially if this is just a habit for you and you're used to it, it just becomes something you're like, okay, I got to ask my executive about this. And you wait until you have that daily, people call them a daily stand-up, whatever you want to call it. I worked as an administrative assistant. Any advice on how to prepare for an executive assistant role? So one thing I will say that's different, or that I found was different about being an administrative assistant versus an executive assistant, is when you're an admin assistant, you have a list of tasks to be done, and like that's kind of that. Like you complete your tasks. You might, get other admin tasks that are given to you. You complete your tasks, that's kind of what you do. When it comes to being an executive assistant, you really need to be more on the strategic side. You need to be thinking ahead. You need to be able to work with all different personalities. Because even if your executive is awesome, there's going to be other people that you're like, ooh, got to steer clear of you. Ooh, I can tell this person gets in a mood during these certain meetings or whatever it is. So you have to know how to read the room. You need to be able to anticipate the needs of your executive. Like, honestly, that's what a lot of executives want. They want someone who can anticipate needs without actually being like having to explain a ton. And that's why I've always found the executive preference sheet is a really good thing to reference. Like you have them fill it out one time and then you can reference it. And when it comes to like goals and priorities, you can ask them on a quarterly basis if those are updated. But I don't remember why I started talking about that. Oh, because you asked about preparing for an EA role from an AA role. So let's see, is there anything else? I would just say if you're not currently using a task management system, I would figure out one, because you will be doing executive level project management. So find a system that works really well for you, and that's going to be your central command system. That's where you're going to put every single task that you have, and then you're going to break down those tasks even more, and then you're just going to move them through your statuses until they're done. I know it's really hard for me to explain this without showing you, but you just have to figure out how to stay organized with all the tasks that you get, because yes, you do get a lot of tasks as an executive assistant, but it's a lot of reading between the lines. It's looking ahead. You really need to make sure you're looking ahead at the calendar. I always recommend 30 days minimum, but I say up to 6 months. Like I like doing a weekly calendar audit, and that is so I can continue to look out on the calendar, know what's coming up, know what when there's conversations being had in emails, in meetings, like know how they all relate, how all of the dots connect. So the more you learn about the company, the more you learn about your executive, it's ultimately going to make your job easier, because you just kind of need to know how all of the dots work together. How does your executive's role fit into the entire company? And like, is there different hierarchies for if you need approvals for things? It's really thinking everything through. Because, you're managing executive level projects behind the scenes. It's one thing I will say, it's invisible leadership. You have so many things going on behind the scenes. You have so many people reaching out to you. When I was working at Polaris, I was supporting the president, and I would be working with our VP of finance, our VP of HR, our VP of operations. I'd be working with the CEO's assistant, trying to plan different meetings, and I'd be having a conversation with her, and I would hear that something was coming up, some sort of travel was coming up, and my executive was going to be expected to attend, but it wasn't on the calendar yet. Well, because I had that conversation with that executive assistant, I was able to let my executive know about it before he even really knew about it. And that just showed my executive that I was really, working on things behind the scenes. And and networking, and kind of like that, I was that right hand partner to my executive, that he could trust me, that I was listening to what was going on and I was able to piece things together. So that's a really long-winded way of saying how you can prepare for an executive assistant role. But yeah, those are just some things that come to the top of my head of how they're different, and how, you know, your mindset, it needs to change from being an administrative assistant, because I made that mistake of, I went from being an administrative assistant and I was like, hey, I want to be an executive assistant. Sounds fun. I had no idea what to actually do. I had no idea how to actually support. So, I mean, I knew how to support. I knew I was an administrative assistant, but I didn't know the difference between an executive assistant. Like, I just thought you were doing the same type of the same type of work, but for an executive, if that makes sense. But no, it's so different, and the role has evolved so much. So yeah, those are the few things that I would kind of think about to get in that mindset of being an executive assistant, because it really is different. And yeah, I learned a lot of things the hard way, because I went into it just thinking I was just taking tasks, and then my executive one day, I'll never forget, I was sitting at my desk, and like, I was sitting there like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing right now? I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. And I felt like I knew, like I was supposed to know what to do, but no one trained me. So yeah, I learned so many things the hard way. And that's why I've documented it all, and that's why I started this channel, because it sucked learning everything the hard way, and like kind of being blindsided by what the executive assistant role really is, because I just wasn't expecting it. I personally love the role. I was great at it, but it's just not where my heart was. Like, being an entrepreneur has always been like my heart. It's always been that gut feeling that that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I was led here for a reason. I clearly needed to go through the entire path I went down being an administrative professional. I look at it as I had to go through all of that so I could share it with you guys now, because clearly people are still in the same spot that I was. So if I can help anyone not be sitting at their desk, just twiddling their thumbs, having no idea what to do as an executive assistant. Oh, no way. Wait, did Elise leave? So, Mr. Duke? Do you support Mr. Duke? That's so funny. I'm like loving it. You can see my face is all red. Doing an exec overview every Friday for the following week. He just changed his mind a lot. Yep, and that's the hard thing, is that executives will change their mind a lot. They could have something that they want to do in the morning, and then by the afternoon they're like, haha, we're changing it. Speeds in, yup, that's so funny. It's so funny. Oh, yes, I was talking to Julie. That's so funny. Do you think it's possible to transition from admin assistant to EA without a degree? I do think it's possible. The one thing, though, it might, like, if you can get your foot in the door somewhere, like, people for some reason, they're just like, you need 5 years of experience, even though, I mean, really you don't. If you have the knowledge, that's like saying that someone that went to school, it's the same type of thing. Someone gets a degree and then they graduate and they can't get a job because they need experience. Well, how do they get that experience? You know what I mean? So I actually created a certification program that gets you, so it compresses 5 years of executive assistant experience into 7 weeks. So you guys can just start implementing right away. And that is something that you can add to your resume, and you can say 5 years of executive assistant on the job, training, because that's essentially what it is. I'm training on everything that I wish I knew in 5 years. Like, you're learning all this stuff that, unfortunately, I had to find out the hard way. So another thing that you can do is, if you wanted to get freelance clients as an executive assistant, that would be a way to also get that experience. I don't think a degree is, sorry, your initial question was without a degree. So I think a degree can get your foot in the door. Like I'll be the first one to say, I think me having a degree, it helped me get my foot in the door. It helped executives, see me or make me stand out, I guess. But I learned everything on the job. So I think it depends. It depends who you want to support, because like if you want to do freelancing, if you want to support online business owners, I'm stumbling over my words. Honestly, like online business owners, I feel like most of them don't care if you have a degree. They don't care. They want to see what work you can provide. So I do think that you can be an EA without a degree. If you want to get into corporate, it might be harder, because I feel like that degree, it does kind of get your foot in the door. Like it's a box that they want checked, even though there's no degree for being an executive assistant. Like you can't go unless someone's come up with it, but I have not seen a degree that's specifically for being an executive assistant. There's business administration. That's what I got my degree in, business administration and business management. I didn't learn anything about being an executive assistant. Like even for business, I learned so much on the job, because on the job is when I was able to piece things together and understand it better versus sitting in a classroom. So that's what I have to say about that. Yes, definitely a lot more responsibilities being an executive assistant. Yep. And that's the thing. If you can stay organized, if you can use a task management system, that is your one source of truth. Any task that you get goes in your task management system. And if you can break it down even further, if you can say which executive asked you, if you can have a follow-up section. So if you were asking your executive something and they didn't answer you, you can have that in the needs follow-up section so you can continue to ask your executive. Because that is one thing I will say is if you keep asking your executive about anything, something that you know that they have to do, or it's a certain task and you need an answer from them and they keep ignoring you, they're not giving you an answer. One thing I will say is to keep asking them. Don't assume that because they're not answering you that they don't want it to be done. Like say it's an event and you're like, hey, do you want to go to this event? And they're just not responding to you. I would just add that if you're sending a weekly status update email, add that in there in a needs follow-up section and just keep it in there until they answer you. Because there have been times where I thought that, okay, I've asked my executive about this certain thing like 3 times and they haven't said anything. Clearly they don't need it. I just don't even need to be asking them anymore. Well, then weeks would go by and my executive would reach out to me and say, what happened with XYZ? And I'm like, oh, sorry, you didn't answer, so I didn't know that you were interested. And he's like, no, keep asking me. Like, keep asking me. I just don't know how to answer in that time. I got busy, whatever it is. So until they tell you to stop asking, I would keep asking. But just add it to your follow-up email or add it to your weekly status email. Add it to your follow-up section. So it's there. You're doing your due diligence. You are doing your job by asking. And then they just get to choose when they answer you. You can even put a due date on there. You can highlight it. Say, I need your answer by this date. But yeah, you're doing your job. You're covering your ass. Yes, exactly. Plan lots of annual trips, events, and programs. That is one thing I loved about my job was event planning. Loved it. EAs often have a 24/7 job, so draining. Okay. One thing I will say to this is I don't think it should be a 24/7 job. If you're not being paid 24/7, you shouldn't be available 24/7. I do think you need to set boundaries, and I'm not saying you in general. I'm just saying these are my opinions. As an executive assistant, I don't think executive assistants are paid nearly enough to be available 24/7. And I don't know what anyone's being paid, but we're still human. We still need to have boundaries, and we're not the business owner. Like and I'm saying this as a business owner perspective as well. No one is ever going to love my business as much as me. And I feel like it's unrealistic to ask an employee to be available 24/7 and to love your company the way that you do. Because yes, you can have very loyal employees, but they still have their own life. Your business is your baby, but an executive assistant, they're there to support you. They're not there to be available 24/7, acting like your business is their baby, if that makes sense. So I'm a firm believer, you have to have boundaries. And if you can set those boundaries up front, that is going to be the best, like when you first start with executives. If you have people, and there's a lot of nuance to this, if people are traveling and you schedule the travel, you might want to be available for that. If there's certain events going on, you might just want to be available for it. But I think on a day-to-day basis, on a normal basis, you should not be available 24/7. I think it's unrealistic. I think it's a recipe for burnout. I think if your executive respects you, they would want you to have a life. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different executives out there, and there's a lot of assistants that they're fine being available 24/7. I think that's a recipe for burnout. So yeah. I just thought, like, when I first started at Polaris, I told my executive that I had to leave by a certain time every day because my daughter's daycare closed. And then I made sure I was not answering at night. Like, if I would see when emails were coming through, I would see when messages would come through if it was after hours. But just because my executive was working doesn't mean that I need to drop everything and answer. Unless you're saving lives, I think that tasks can wait until the next day. Like, unless your executive is in the middle of travel, they're at an event, like something is actually going on, like maybe they're traveling and their, flight connection got canceled and now, they have to figure out hotel, you have to let people know for the meeting that they're supposed to be at. That would be a time that, yes, you'd be available for it. But I think on just a random Tuesday when they're emailing at 10 o'clock at night because they're working on something, I don't think you need to respond. I think if you do respond, you are setting them up to expect you to respond. Not saying that you set yourself up to be available 24/7. I know it can be very hard to push back on executives as well. Like, I completely understand that. But I do think you do need to have boundaries. I don't think it's realistic to be available 24/7. I think it's a recipe for burnout. I'm scared to look for a higher role. Why are you scared? Honestly, I've seen people that they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Why would I not apply to this dream role that I really don't have a ton of experience in? Why not apply to it? What if you get it? What if? Ooh, how do you handle being hired to support one executive and they slowly want to add more execs to you? So one thing I would say, go to your job description when you hired. I look at that as like a contract, okay? Because if that has your scope of work, that has your roles and responsibilities of your job. And if they are saying that you're only supporting one executive, I would make sure that you are documenting anything that you're doing for these other executives. Document the amount of time, document projects that you're doing. And that is all going to build your case for asking for a raise. Because if you're supporting multiple executives, I think you should be paid more for that. And especially if you were only hired to support one executive and then they're trying to add more to you, I feel like that would be a conversation for a raise. Oh my gosh, I did not know Elise left. I actually just saw something she posted on social media and it made me think, I'm like, are you no longer at Polaris? Oh my gosh. And honestly, who you're supporting, I think he's amazing. I have a photo with him in my phone. We were at a concert at Polaris events. I think he's a great executive, honestly. If you could support anyone at Polaris, I think he's going to be the best. Elise always talked so highly of him. So yes, Polaris is in the Twin Cities. Oh, you're in the Twin Cities too. That's awesome. Oh yeah, if you go in blindsided and you have no idea what to expect, totally. I understand being nervous and not really knowing what to do, especially like Polaris is a whole nother level, honestly. It is busy, it is fast paced, so many things are going on behind the scenes. Like one thing I would do is, because I know the company, I would make sure that you were talking to the other assistants and, get in with them, have conversations with them, see if you can go to the different events to support. And because the more that you were talking to the other assistants, especially being in different offices, it's just an easier way to find out what's going on behind the scenes. And then you're going to be able to show your boss that you're not only networking with people, but you're figuring out what's going on and what's coming up. So yeah, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. I love, like, that's so cool that you work at Polaris. Yes, headquarters of Polaris are in Medina. I didn't work in Medina. I worked off of Bass Lake Road. It was in Bass Creek. I got lucky to get this job without a degree. However, I think having one would have gotten me further. You know what? Now that you have it on your resume that you've been an executive assistant, you can just keep building. Keep building your skills. Keep building honestly, it's your strategic thinking. I found that was kind of the biggest change for me was you really have to think strategically on a day-to-day basis. How things flow, how the meetings flow together, which ones take priority, which ones don't. Like there's so much strategy that goes on behind it. I'm currently an administrative assistant and have been for 10 plus years, but I want to move to executive assistant without a degree. So I think if you have the experience of an administrative assistant, I think that makes up for the degree. I was saying a little earlier that I think the only thing a degree did for me was get my foot in the door, because when I worked at Polaris, the executive I was supporting, he's no longer there, but he had very, very high expectations. And when I was in it, it was very hard for me because he was one of the best executives to support, but he was also the most difficult executive to support because he had such high expectations. But I learned so much, and now hindsight is 2020. I'm so thankful that I had him as my boss. And yeah, it's just funny. Everyone knew that the person I supported, he had very, very high standards. And I think he specifically wanted a degree. Like he wanted the person supporting him to have a degree. He was very old school. But like I was saying earlier, if you are doing any kind of freelance work, or if you're working for, more of a startup or just like an online business owner, they might not care as much about degrees, or just the fact that you have so much experience that can be the equivalent of a degree. I would just think about, because you're going from administrative assistant to executive assistant, you have to get that the strategic mindset and really think of yourself as an executive level partner, because a lot of executives nowadays, that's how they look at you, is you're an executive level partner. They want you to think strategically. So am I walking and talking? Oh my gosh, that scared me for a second. I've been walking so long, my walking pad turned off. Jeez, that scared me. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here because I'm hot. Luckily, it's a hair washing day. Okay, how do you get over feeling anxious being in the boardroom meetings and focused when taking notes? So, feeling anxious being in the boardroom, is it like being around other executives? Is it taking notes? Is it feeling like you're gonna mess something up while taking notes? Is it you're worried someone's gonna ask you a question? Like, go a little bit deeper on that. Totally, learning on the job is better. Like the things that you can learn from someone, whether it's you that's gone through it or it's someone else that's gone through it and you get to learn from them. Like, luckily, there have been people who have warned me about certain people at company, or like certain people in the company that you're like, ooh, gotta stay clear of them. Like, don't say too many things around that person. Like, where was I going with that? I don't know. That's the squirrel brain in me. Oh yeah, we were talking about learning on the job. Duh. Tips on creating agendas and itineraries for your executive. So I always keep a template. That's another thing I have in my template library, but I have an agenda template or meeting agenda template and then a travel itinerary template. So I just create a copy of it. I can just plug in what's needed. And the reason I like that is I can go by like every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes if I need to, and I can walk through the itinerary like I'm the executive. That's one thing I will say when I'm creating travel itineraries is I walk through the itinerary like I am the executive. Like if I was the one traveling, what would I do when I get to when my plane lands at the airport? Do I get a car? Like what time of day am I going to get there? Is there going to be a crazy taxi line where I'd rather just hop in a car and go to the meeting? Or am I going to wait in this hot Uber line and then have to, go to the meeting sweaty, whatever it is? Like I just always put myself in my executive's shoes, and again using templates because you don't need to create the same itinerary or agenda over and over. You just have one template and you just make a copy of it and you just change it for that meeting or for that trip. I feel like I'm on call 24/7 or close to, and I have 5 kids and some days it's exhausting. Oh. And that's the thing, being available 24/7, it just, I think that goes back to if you can figure out exactly the priorities of your executive. And so if you do get a message at night, you can determine, okay, is this something that he actually needs to be responded to? Because yeah, especially with kids, like I know how draining that can be. Like you're trying to focus on your kids and then you get a message, you're like, oh, I gotta go answer this. But I think because you have kids, that's honestly a good way to set a boundary. Say, okay, from this time to this time, like, from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. or whatever your off hours are, say, I'm mostly unavailable. I'm checking my phone, but unless it's a priority, unless it's something that is urgent that we've discussed, I'll get back to you right away in the morning. And, obviously you're being respectful about this. And I think with you saying like, I'm checking messages, it's just, if it's something that can wait until the next day, I want to make sure I can soak up the time with my family or whatever it is. You don't even need to talk about your family. I feel like that's just a way that people can say, oh, you're like, whatever. I feel like sometimes people just will look down on working moms or whatever. That's a whole nother story. I'm not even going to get into it. But yeah, just setting those boundaries, and yeah, you don't need to be rude about it. You just say, oh, you know what, from this time to this time, I just want to let you know I'm checking my messages, but if it doesn't fall under these specific categories, then I'll just be answering the next morning. And honestly, how can they be mad at that? How can they be mad at you for having boundaries? Like if you're available all day, all during the day, why would they be mad at you for having boundaries at night when you're trying to have time with your friends and family? Like you have a life outside of work. I don't know. I've always said executives they're paid more, and that's why they're expected to be available as much as they are. I mean, they're getting an astronomical amount, so they probably do look at the business more like, yeah, this is my business. Especially if they're a president, they're like, this is my business. Their department is their business. But yeah, it's just, you're supporting an executive, but I don't think you should have that level of availability. I'm a firm believer, again, in boundaries. There you go. I told mine if he texts me after hours, I'll thumbs it up so he knows I've seen it. That's another thing. You can even respond and say, received, I'll respond back in the morning. You can say things like that even, so they know that you got it and they know that you're going to respond tomorrow. Okay, that's such a small world. It really is. Yes, I don't even know if he'll remember it. He probably would, because I'll just tell you, I supported Steve Eastman. So you can ask him if he knows Amanda Emery. But yeah, he's great. I'm happy. I'm super happy for you. I know how great he is. Yes, yes, Emily's so amazing. Yes. Julie and Emily, love them. I'm jealous. I'm getting FOMO right now. I will say, leaving Polaris was one of the hardest decisions for me because of the people I worked with. They were all so amazing. So honestly, I have a little bit of FOMO because I just loved the people that I worked with. Yay, I love to hear that they're giving you all the tips. That's awesome. Yes, Elise, she was awesome. Does your course cover corporate speak? So do you mean, when you say corporate speak, I guess I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, I talk a lot about, communicating with executives. Do you mean communications, is that what you kind of mean, communication? I want to make sure I'm answering that correctly. Oh, wait, okay, I'm a communicator, but it's such a different terminology. Oh, so you mean like corporate jargon? That kind of stuff? Man, there's a lot of different corporate jargon, that's for sure. Hello from the Philippines. Good communicator, which is not apparent by that typo. That's perfectly okay. I do typos all the time, and I'm like, awesome. I'm starting a new EA role and won't know the industry, the people's names, note taking. Okay, so are you going to be an EA through an agency where you're matched up with an executive? Oh my gosh, okay, that makes me blush that he remembers me. Honestly, he was so great. Okay, yeah, different verbiage. So, yeah, what is all the different corporate jargon? Gosh, I don't even know. I feel like every place is maybe a little bit different. Well, not really though. There's let's circle back. I guess I don't know. I can't even think off the top of my head. Okay, you got hired to work for a president of a company, but it says you won't know the industry, the people's names, note taking. Okay, I guess I don't really understand. Yeah, close the loop. Let's circle back on this. Oh gosh, this happens to me all the time where it's these games where people are like, oh, list anything that starts with the letter C, and then your mind goes completely blank. That's what happens to me. Okay, so you're nervous about doing all the first time things at a new job. Oh no, no, I get it now. So what I always say is if you know the company, I would start doing all the research on the company. Your executive, go on LinkedIn if you can, figure out more about them, see if there's any articles, see if there's articles out about the company. And when you go on LinkedIn, that's a good way to piece it together. Or you can go to their website. You can go to the About section, or if they have a section of who each person is, you can maybe connect with them on LinkedIn. But I really try and connect all the dots. And I was trying to think. I go through this in a program of mine, but I'm refreshing it, and I'm going to have it coming out with it at some point. So you really, I think of it as you're building a house. So when you're starting a new company, the way that you're going to have a really solid foundation is by learning everything about the company, learning everything about your executive, piecing everything together, knowing how all the dots connect. So if you're going in office, I can't remember if you said you're virtual or not, but if you're going in office, it's figuring out, okay, where are all of the offices? When you're in office, where are the conference rooms? How do you book a conference room? Where are the restrooms? How do you reach out to facilities if there's something in the office that needs facilities attention? It's figuring out all of those little things about the company. And look at the company handbook. I would look at the travel policy. See what else. the executive preference sheet, I would have your executive fill that out so that you know what their goals and priorities and preferences are, and you can start to make sure that you are staying within that. I would do an audit of their calendar for the past year, list out all of the meetings that they have, and write out the name of the meeting, the recurrence, how often it happens, what is going on in the meeting, and who needs to be involved. And then you can go over that with your executive, and they can let you know which meetings are super important, kind of how they all tie together. And basically you're just trying to piece everything together. The more you know, the better you can do your job. Especially starting at a new job, you have a blank slate. That's great. Yeah, so I would go in there and just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't assume. That is one thing I definitely will say. Do not assume. If you have a question, I would just ask your executive. Don't try and assume what the answer would be. It's better for you to ask them versus assume and do it wrong. And then it can either be an expensive mistake or it's just, takes more time because you have to do it again. So a lot of executives, they would rather you ask questions so that you can do it correctly the first time versus having to redo the work because you assumed. Working for the president and sitting in the boardroom. Okay, so that makes you a little anxious. And honestly, one thing that I have found when it comes to growing your confidence, because, I have anxiety. I would get nervous about being around executives. And the one thing that I found helped me was I realized that the more that I grew in my role, the more that I learned, the more confident I felt in my abilities, the easier it was for me to be around executives. So I don't have like a deep dive on how to do that. Mindset is a huge thing, and just knowing that you're not just an assistant, you're a strategic partner to your executive. I was hired to support a VP and the job title is sales admin, but I'm doing the role of an EA and more. So one thing that I would do is document everything that you're doing that is outside of your scope of work or is outside of the roles and responsibilities for when you first started. And if the list of tasks that you have is higher than, or not higher, but if you end up having a substantial amount of tasks that were not on your initial roles and responsibilities, well, that is when you could start a conversation for getting a raise. And what you're doing is you're building a case. So you're making note of all the new tasks that you're doing and maybe how much time they take or how much time you have saved, whatever it is, and you're building a case for asking for a raise. How do I handle the nervousness in the boardroom? I'm such an anxious person. So, I completely understand. Like I stress sweat. I can't tell if I'm sweating now from walking or stress sweat from talking. But anytime I would have to be around executives, I just had stress sweat. So I completely understand being nervous in the boardroom. I guess what is your role in the boardroom? Are you just there taking notes? Or are you an active participant where they're asking you questions? But when you go into the boardroom, and I've had to do this, I think it's Mel Robbins, her 5-second rule. So I had to do this when I put in my notice for Polaris because I was so anxious about it. But you just count down from 5 and you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you go and you do the thing. And so that is something that you could do before you go into the boardroom, like right before you walk in. You can say, you can take a deep breath and you can say even to yourself, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you walk in there. She has a whole book on it if you want to read that. I read that years ago and I've used that multiple times throughout my career. They have EAs, but they're only for SVPs and above, so they won't give me the EA title. So I would ask, what tasks are you doing? Make a list of all the tasks that you're doing and see if you can get the executive assistant job description, like what they are doing. And if your tasks are the same, like that would be your case for changing your title, if that makes sense. Do you do you have a how to be an anxious EA section? So I don't have that, but the whole premise of Nail the Fundamentals of Being an Executive Assistant is so that you can be a confident, indispensable executive assistant. And honestly, a lot of it is mindset. And so the first module actually is talking about mindset. And then all throughout every single module, I walk you through what I wish I had known, what I would do in different situations. And the one thing that's really nice about this right now is you actually get 12 months in my membership. It's called Think Like an Executive. And you can actually, like, that's where the implementation happens. So that's where you can ask me deeper questions. That's where I can actually give you more feedback on your role. How not to be anxious. Yep. I understood. In person only. Okay, yeah, so your role is in person. I completely understand. I think it's you kind of have to figure out how to regulate your nervous system almost. I know that can be really difficult because sometimes I get an email and my nervous system goes absolutely crazy. So when you're in person, trying to figure out how to not be super anxious. Like I've done like EFT tapping as well. I've taken deep breaths. Like if I'm going into certain meetings or honestly, sometimes when I just think about, okay, what's the worst that can go wrong? And if I prepare for it, then I'm not as anxious about it because I already know like what could go wrong. I had an interview, the CEO cry in my interview recently. What was I supposed to do with that? That's a first. What did the CEO cry about? Like, was it a personal thing and like they opened up to you about it? I mean, with that, clearly they felt comfortable enough for you to do that, or enough for them to feel comfortable to be able to do that with you. What would you do if hired for one exec and they want to add more execs to support and you were hired for only one? That is when I would make sure you have a copy of your job description and where it says that you are only supposed to support one executive. And then as they either add to your role or look online. I always like looking at Glassdoor, and well, first you want to just make a list of what they are having you do and then put that in Glassdoor and kind of figure out the pay range that you should be. And that can be your case for getting a raise. If you do not want to support these other people, you can say, according to when I first signed on, when I first started, these are the roles and responsibilities that I agreed to. So I guess it depends what the outcome is that you want. It's, whether you only want to support one executive or if you want a pay raise to support these other people, which I think you should, if you're supporting more people, because that's just more stress. What about the taking minutes and being in the boardroom with anxiety? So one thing that I have done for EFT tapping is I always have a rubber band here, and there's one area here where if you go like this, like it gives me the same, or not, it distracts me, if that makes sense. Like me doing this, and not like you can really do it in a meeting, but like if you had a really tight one and you can just like do that, I found because I'm doing that, I pay more attention to what's happening on my wrist than what's going on in my brain, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone. This is just kind of what I have found. But if you're taking meeting minutes in the meeting, I would figure out, is there any kind of way that you can record the meeting? Like if you're using Microsoft Outlook and you have like Microsoft Teams, you probably have Copilot. And if you can record it, you can transcribe it, and Copilot can actually do the meeting minutes for you. So that is a way that could lower your anxiety if you have that backup of knowing that the meeting is being recorded. I know not all companies allow meetings to be recorded, so it just depends on your company. Are they willing to fill out forms given their time? because I think that'll help the EA. Absolutely, it helps so much when you get the executive preference sheet filled out. So you can either ask your executive to fill it out in their free time, or you can put a meeting on their calendar to specifically just go over their executive preference sheet. And when you go in and you have structured questions and you know exactly what you're going to ask them, that way you're only spending maybe an hour talking about this, and then you have all of those answers for your time going forward. And a lot of times, most of the answers aren't going to change. Maybe on a quarterly basis, their goals, different priorities, things will change like that. But majority of the information is going to stay the same. So I say if you just have a meeting, if you have a meeting with them, make sure you go in, you own the meeting. You are letting them, like, you're going from one thing to the next, filling it out, staying on track, showing them that you're serious about, what am I trying to say here? Protecting their time. You're serious about, not wasting their time. You just want to be focused, get these answers done, because it's just going to help you in your job. How to behave if all of your team is off sick due to mental illnesses and I only work part-time and expected to do it all. Well, are they asking you to be burnt out as well? Like, one person can't do all of that. It depends, because I don't know the exact situation, but I would let them know that if they're expecting me to do everything, it's only going to be a recipe for burnout, and I'm eventually going to have to take FMLA for mental health. You know what I mean? At least that's what would happen for me. I would be burnt out. I would be super burnt out if everyone left, or everyone's gone due to mental illnesses and everything is then put on me. Well, that's not fair to you, and that's just going to make you burnt out. So, I mean, if you were to say, like, look, I'm trying to get ahead of this, I don't want this to happen, but I see it potentially happening, is there something that we can do? Because it's not like they're going to get rid of you. They're going to try to find a way to make you stay, to make you happy. Because if you're the only one, what are they going to do if you leave? You know what I mean? So that's a little bit of leverage that you have, where it's like, look, I'm willing to help, but I can already see that I'm going to get burnt out. This is too much for one person. And I don't want to get to that point where I would have to take a leave for my mental health. So what can we do? How can we delegate some of these tasks? And if you go in with ideas for how to delegate things to other people, maybe how to automate certain things, whatever it is, maybe people have to book their own travel. Oh, shocker. Yeah, it's always fun being an EA. Oh, I'm starting to resent my job. I'm being overworked. I've been in my role for 3 years. I completely understand. I don't know your story, but I know the feeling of being resentful in your role, being overworked, and just you're over it. Yep, I understand. I do have all the Polaris tips. Honestly, I miss it. I miss my admin girls there. I'm gonna do a happy hour. I'm working with my department to obtain ClickUp. Yes. What are some of your favorite features of it? Honestly, there's so many things that you can do. That's the great thing. You can really tailor it to what you need. If you do need a ClickUp template specifically for admin, I do have a free one in my bio. If you go and you just click on ClickUp template for admin, I think it's what it's called. But you can use that and you can make a copy of it for your ClickUp, and you can play around with it, move things as needed. But that kind of shows how I lay it out. I like being able to have a due date. I like being able to have a priority level. I like being able to choose who sent me a task, because when I was working at Polaris, I was supporting the president, but then I was supporting 14 of his VPs, and then everyone else in the department, which was 400. You just have random people asking you stuff. So I liked that I could color code by who was asking me, who was sending me the task, so that I knew who to go back to. Because again, when you have that many people in a department, you forget. And if I can avoid having to check my email to see who sent it to me, like, I don't know, it's just the color coding. If I can color code, I love that personally. What else do I have here? Oh, if you can track your time. That's one thing really awesome. Find, like, well, with ClickUp you can do it, but track your time. Because if you are doing a certain task and you realize that, hey, I've saved a bunch of time by doing this task and I have evidence because I've been timing myself, that can be something you can put in your performance review. You can put that in your brag document. So there's so many different ways to use a task management system when you like truly utilize it and you use it as like your one central source of truth. Highly recommend. Regardless of what system you use, just use a task management system. I used to use the pen and paper. I had things falling through the cracks. It was not efficient for me. So I started using ClickUp. I've used quite a few other ones. I personally love ClickUp. You might like a different one. Love that for you. Figure out what works for you. Figure out something that you're going to use every single day, because you will be checking your task management system every single day. Anytime I was sitting at my desk and I'm like, okay, what do I work on now? Like, I know I have things to work on, but what is priority right now? I would just open up my ClickUp and I could see, oh, okay, yep, that's coming up, gotta work on that. Just easier for organization. Do you try to run the meeting or just take notes? So, depends on the meeting. If it is a meeting for you and your executive, like it's a one-on-one meeting, I own the meeting. I would go in, I would talk about calendar conflicts coming up. I would talk about projects and the statuses. I would talk about follow-up items. And then my executive, they could go over things if they had questions or they had things to talk about. But I would go first. And I would say, like, I would even let them know, like, these are the items we're going to be talking about today. But I would go into it first and I would own the meeting. I would start right off, first thing I need to talk about. And then when it would get to my executive, there'd be a lot of times he'd be like, okay, we already talked about this, And so I had already covered the things that he wanted to talk about, and that right there was building trust. So when it comes to a one-on-one meeting, I highly suggest taking control of the meeting. The way you can take control is just going in with an agenda. That's a big thing. But if it's like the board meeting, no, I don't think you need to take control with that. That is one where you would just be support. You would just, you would more so be the person, like if something goes wrong with the meeting, you would reach out to IT. I would make sure you get in with your IT guys, have a good working relationship with them, because you never know when your IT guys, when last minute you're like, something happened in my meeting, I need you to come here, and they will like run and help you. Having a good working relationship with your IT guys can be very helpful, because I've had them even sit in on meetings before so that they could make sure things were going right, and if anything did happen during the meeting, they could help. So that's another thing that I would say. But if it's any other type of meeting, I wouldn't say you need to take control of it. It's just that one-on-one meeting. Any other meeting, you're typically going to be there for support. You're going to be there so that you can hear what's going on. You can piece things together. You can maybe take notes if that's what they want you to do. Oh, sorry, I didn't read this. Not run it, but open it and go through the agenda, or just take minutes. So that's actually something you can ask your executive. What I have always done is I go in, I set up the meeting, do the dial in, have everything set up to go, and then whoever is in the meeting, whoever's on the agenda, they go right into the agenda. I have never done anything when it comes to that, and it's because my executive didn't need me to. I even asked him what he wanted me to do in these meetings, and he didn't need me to do anything. So I would just ask your executive what their expectations are for you when you're sitting in those meetings. What do you know about automation tricks and how to use it? Use it in the executive's inbox. So you need to make sure that you have access to your executive's inbox. You need to make sure that you have full control so that you can make changes. There might be things that you have to do from your executive's computer, like it has to be that specific account. Or again, if you can have your IT guys remote into your executive's computer and do it for them, that's great too. But yeah, when it comes to automation, one thing I recommend is having your executives' emails and calendar invites go to your inbox. They can also receive it, but if it goes to your inbox, it's so helpful. I refer to Polaris all the time because I was there for over 6 years, a lot of experience there. And so my executive, I would get, anytime he got an email from any of the executives, I got it right on my phone. I'd be stepped away for lunch and I'd be like, okay, the executives are talking about this. There's something going on. And it was very, very nice because I stayed in the know. I knew what was going on. I was not in the conversation, but I saw that they were talking about things. So it was on my radar then. I knew that a meeting was going to have to happen, or I knew that travel was going to come up based on those conversations. And it's because it automatically was sent to my inbox. So again, like I would just get these emails and I'd look and be like, oh, okay, something's going on right now. But it was super helpful just knowing what was going on. Because yeah, you're piecing things together. So the inbox, it's a great way to find things out, to be honest. This helps so much. Yay! So happy to hear that. What advice do you have when starting in a new department and working with a new director? So, sorry, catching my breath. I always recommend having a meeting with your executive, going in with an executive preference sheet. I guess it depends how much you're supporting this director. Like, are you their executive assistant? I guess what will you be doing for this director? And like, if you are supporting them, you're doing calendar, you're booking travel, all of that. I would go in, I would have a meeting with them, a one-on-one meeting, and go over the calendar, or well, yeah, you want to go over the calendar, but go over the executive preference sheet and their goals, their priorities, the meetings, like what's important, what isn't, what can be moved, what can't be moved. The important people, like if someone is sending an email, or like if someone schedules a meeting with your executive and it's on top of another meeting, who are those priority people where you would keep their meeting on the calendar and you would move the other one? Like, you go through all of that and you're setting that base, like that foundation of knowledge for your executive. For a new role, do you think it's okay to have AI take the minutes in meetings? That way we can free up our time to work on other things and give us a little more freedom during the days we want time off. But they have meetings and we feel like they can't meet without us leading everything. I know we can add agendas and follow-ups to the team or Zoom in advance, so it's all running. Yep. So it's going to depend on the company and what they allow, because there's some companies that don't allow different AI, they don't allow different automation. So if your company, like if you have Microsoft Teams and if you can record and do the transcription and if you have Copilot attached to that and you can do meeting minutes, why would your executive not want you to utilize that? If they question it, you can show them how much time you are spending taking meeting minutes and, organizing everything, all of that. You can show them how much time is being spent on that versus how much time you could be spending on actual strategy work or working on a project on something that will actually move the needle forward. Oh my gosh, that's a corporate jargon. Moving the needle forward. Let's see. How would you suggest to prepare for leaving your position, like info for your replacement? Ooh, this is a good one because I just did this last year. So I created a whole SOP system for my role. I loved my executive that I was supporting. He was newer in the role, and I did not want to leave him hanging. Like, I felt so bad for putting in my resignation, but it's something that I had to do. And so I wanted to make sure that he was set up and that the team was set up. So I had already been documenting my role. I had systems in place. I already had an SOP that I had created for my role. It goes through step by step how to do my job, essentially. And when I knew that I was putting in my resignation, I went through it even further and really made it so if they had any questions, it was in there. They would know how to find the answer to it, essentially. I wanted to make it so when I left, if they didn't have an assistant step in right away, that they would be able to still get the job done. And it's crazy. I don't think they've even hired for my role yet, which is nuts. But yeah, shit happens. No, totally. And so you don't want to get burned out. You essentially don't want to be involved in everything. You want to teach your executives how to do these things on their own. And I have done this. One thing you have to do is just make it so stupid simple for them to have all that done behind the scenes. So you might even be able to automatically set it up so it oh my gosh, I have such a snarl in my hair. You might be able to have it set up where it automatically records, and so like it saves on a cloud somewhere. You could have that happen so it automatically records and it's saved to a cloud, and then you can go in, or you can even have it automatically transcribe and do the meeting minutes for you and email it out to everyone. Those are all automations that you can set up within Copilot and different automation systems, depending what you're using. But yeah, you just have to make sure that the executives are okay with it. And if you make it stupid simple, if you show them exactly how everything's going to work, and you lay it out and you show them how much time is going to be saved that you can focus on other strategic projects that are bringing an ROI, well, why would they not want you to do that? There might be executives that are still going to want you to do it, but you got to do everything that you can to make your job more efficient, make it more seamless, and if you can add automation to it, do it. What would be the best AI tool, in your opinion, to get organized? It's going to depend on your system, but like with Outlook, well, and it depends on the version of Outlook too. So if you had like an older version of Outlook, I had a rule where when my executive would email me, the email popped up in red and it was a different font. It was a little bit bigger, so it stuck out. So I knew exactly when my executive was emailing me. I was like, oh, executive emailed me, need to do that. But you can also do things like if you're receiving an email about a certain project or it has a certain keyword in it, you can have a rule set where maybe it adds a task to your task list, or honestly, it's all about playing around with it. And just figuring out, because every executive assistant does have all different tasks, the different systems that you're using, they're all going to be different. So you do need to figure out how can you tailor what I'm saying, how can you tailor it for your role, your systems, and like the systems that your company uses. And yeah, how can you just take what I'm saying and kind of mold it for your position? Yes, I used to do that. Keep a small pocketbook, for important notes like passwords and such. Yep. Yes, place where he gets his haircut, how often. Totally. The small little things. It can just be the little things that you notice throughout the day. This is a great example. Where your executive gets your haircut, how often, maybe how long it takes to get there. So you can figure out drive time, things like that. Think about what are those little things that you can document. And when your executive realizes that you've been paying attention and you notice those things, you pick up on the pattern recognition, they're like, that's another way to build trust with them. What advice would you give for someone who is the EA to a board? So are you supporting, I used to work with an assistant who supported a board. Trying to think of, like, I have never personally supported a board, but I've worked with an assistant who supported a board. Honestly, I think a big thing is organization, figuring out the processes for each, because you're supporting a board, it's like you almost need to figure out the preferences of each. So you'd need an executive preference sheet for each executive. And if you're booking travel for them, things like that, having all of those preferences, it's only going to help you. yeah, I just always say go back to their goals, priorities, and their preferences. And well, if they're on the board, they typically all have the same goal in mind, but I would focus more on meeting management, calendar management, communication. Are there, certain weeks or that don't work well for them? Especially because then if you're supporting a board, then you have to figure out their work schedule and how that is all going to work. Because my executive, he was on multiple boards, so I had to plan for board travel with corporate travel and, make sure that everything flowed together. I think a big thing is, going back to each executive and how they want to be supported. What is important for each board member for the company that they work at? Like, can you get their corporate calendar? Can you, the one board that my executive was on, their annual meeting list, it was like 4 years out. They had everything planned for the next 4 years. So everyone knew and everyone could plan around when those meetings were going to be. And I had them on the calendar for the next 2 to 3 years. And if they moved, things would move, obviously. But if you have a good idea, if you can plan far ahead, especially if it's multiple executives, they all have different companies that they have to work around. That's kind of how I would start with that. Okay, I'm gonna have to get off here soon because it's been over 2 hours. But I've had so much fun talking with you guys. Okay, I'm the EA to the State Board of Higher Ed with 11 members, and I'm struggling to keep organized. One thing I would ask you is, are you using a task management system? And if you're not, I would suggest doing that. You can grab my free template, my ClickUp template. That is, I think you'd have to go to my bio, click on my link there. But yeah, my ClickUp template, and in there, you can organize it more based on who is sending you a request. You can figure out how much time it takes you. You can color code it. I have just always found every task that came across my desk, I put into a task management system, especially when you're supporting multiple executives and they're coming from all over the place. Have your one source of truth, which is your task management system. That is how you're going to stay organized, is just by keeping a list of everything that you're working on. And then if you can organize your list even more, I have an in progress section, it needs follow-up section. And then I also have my recurring tasks broken up by daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual. And you can do the same thing. Yes, all of this stuff that I'm talking about is included in Nail the Fundamentals. All of these questions that you guys are asking me, I go through them way more in depth in Nail the Fundamentals of Being an Executive Assistant. And I walk you through, it's 7 modules. Not like that really matters, but it's a 7-week program and it compresses 5 years of executive assistant knowledge. And I set it up in a way that we're building a solid foundation. I think of it as we're building a house. So we're starting down here with the foundation, and then we're building brick by brick on top of that. So when you are feeling anxious, when you're in a board meeting, you're not going to feel as anxious. You're going to feel more confident in yourself. And that's a big goal of this is I want, after you take my certification program, I want you to feel more confident in yourself. And the way that I found you can be more confident is by following a system, by listening what someone else has done. And the one thing about this is I don't handhold you, because as an executive assistant, it's not realistic to handhold you. I feel like that would be setting you up for failure, because when you're in the day-to-day, you do need to kind of figure it out. If your executive asks you something, you do kind of need to problem solve and be able to figure it out. So I don't enable in that way where I'm going to walk you through step by step, be there for you every time you have a question, because then I feel like that's setting you up for failure. That's me enabling you, and then you're not going to feel confident in yourself. My whole goal with this certification program is you leave and you feel so confident in yourself that you can step into any executive assistant role and be able to take control of that role. Yay, I'm so happy this was all helpful. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I'm gonna take that as my sign to leave for the day. So I think I'm gonna hop on here more because holy shit, I've had 2 hours of walking on my walking pad and I don't even notice it. So I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. I had so much fun, and yeah, I am going to come on here more and do this. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your nights, and yeah, see you soon.